Hello everyone. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and let's go.
While he was building a legacy for his family, a shadow was systematically dismantling everything he held dear from the inside. We're going to break down the invisible warning signs that most men ignore until the trap has already snapped shut. Listen, I've spent over 20 years in the restaurant business. You do that long enough, your senses change. You can hear a pot of water starting to boil from across a loud kitchen. You can feel it in your bones when a waiter is about to drop a tray. But mostly, your nose becomes a precision instrument. In my place, Faro, I could tell you which bay an oyster came from just by the scent. I could tell if a sous chef put one clove of garlic too many in the confit. I never thought that same nose would end up being the thing that ruined my life. My name is Nate Russo. I'm 41 years old. I own a restaurant on Alberta Street in Portland, Oregon. It's the kind of place people wait 4 weeks for a table. My hands are covered in burn scars and tiny nicks from 1,000 different knives. There's always flour under my fingernails, no matter how hard I scrub. It's honest work. It's hard. It's sweaty. And it's real. My wife, Rachel, was always the opposite. She's a senior auditor at a big firm downtown. Clean. Perfect. She always smelled like fresh air and expensive laundry detergent. Or she did, anyway. The whole thing started on a Tuesday, just a regular gray Oregon Tuesday. I got home after midnight. I smelled like wood smoke from the grill and rosemary. Rachel was still awake. She was sitting on the sofa with her MacBook Pro on her lap. When I leaned down to kiss the top of her head, I stopped dead. That was not her scent. She smelled like heavy, oily musk. There were notes of leather and expensive tobacco in there, too. It was a man's cologne, and not the cheap stuff you get at a drugstore. This was the kind of stuff that costs $500 a bottle in a boutique in the Pearl District. Long night? I asked. I tried to keep my voice steady. She did not even look up from her screen. Her fingers kept tapping away on the keyboard. Brutal, she said. The new partner, Sean, is a slave driver. We were in the conference room for 6 hours straight. Sean smells like a French bordello, I said. It was supposed to be a joke, but it came out flat. Rachel finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold. It's a protocol fragrance, Nate. High-stakes environments. It's about projecting power. You would not get it. I just stood there. Projecting power? We'd been married for 10 years. We had a house, a kid, and a life we built from nothing. I'd worked 18-hour shifts in a food truck to save the down payment for this house. Now, suddenly, I did not get it. A few days later, she told me she needed space. She said the stress of the audit was making her an insomniac. She moved her stuff into the guest bedroom. She told me my snoring was keeping her awake. I have not snored a day in my life, but I did not argue. I just watched her carry her silk pillowcases down the hall. The next morning, I was cleaning up the bathroom. I reached into the small trash can under the sink and found something that made my stomach do a slow roll. It was an empty box of birth control pills. Here's the thing. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago after Owen was born. We talked about it. We agreed we were one and done. So why was my wife, who had not touched me in 2 months, still taking the pill? I went into the kitchen. My son, Owen, was sitting at the table eating Cheerios. He's 10 years old, but he's got the eyes of an old man. He sees everything. He was drawing on the back of a grocery store circular with a Sharpie. "Hey, buddy," I said. "What are you working on?" He pushed the paper toward me. It was a drawing of our backyard. I was there, standing by the Weber grill. But on the other side of the paper, There was a black SUV with dark windows. Inside the car, there were two figures. One was clearly his mom. The other was just a big, dark shape. He'd labeled it Uncle Sean. "Who's Uncle Sean, Owen?" I asked. My heart was thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Mom's friend," he said, not looking up. "He picks her up at the park sometimes after baseball practice. He has a cool car. He gives me Snickers bars, but tells me not to tell you because they're bad for my teeth." I felt like I'd been kicked in the teeth myself. I did not say anything. I could not. I just patted his shoulder and walked out to my truck. I sat there in the driveway of our nice house in our nice neighborhood for 45 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. Look, I'm not a guy who cares much about jewelry. I wear a Casio G-Shock because it can survive a professional kitchen. It does not have a heart rate monitor or GPS. It just tells the time. But right now, I could feel my own pulse thumping in my fingertips, steady and cold, like a countdown. But there was one thing that mattered: Rachel's engagement ring. I did not buy it at a mall. When I was just starting out, I took a trip to Italy to study pasta. I met this old jeweler in a tiny village outside of Florence. I spent $3,000, which was every cent I had back then, on a custom ring. It was a unique alloy, a mix of gold and rose copper, with a small, perfect diamond. Inside, I had him engrave one word: Semper, Latin for always. On Friday, Rachel came home distraught. She was crying, real tears. She said she'd been at the gym and someone must have snatched it from her locker. She said she was devastated. She called the police. She called the insurance company. She played the part of the grieving wife perfectly. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I held her while she sobbed. I told her it was just a piece of metal and we'd get another one. But something felt off. Her grief felt rehearsed, like she was hitting marks in a play. 2 days later, I was scrolling through LinkedIn. Do not ask me why. I guess I wanted to see who this Sean guy really was. I found the company page for her firm. They'd posted a photo of a victory dinner after a successful audit. There he was, Sean. He looked like every guy I hated in high school. Perfectly white teeth, a tan that did not come from the Oregon sun, and a suit that cost more than my first car. I zoomed in on the photo. He was laughing, holding a glass of scotch. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. And there, hanging on a heavy gold chain around his neck, was a ring. It was not just any ring. It was a rose gold and copper alloy. I could see the distinct tint even through the grainy photo. It was her ring. My always. He was wearing it like a trophy. He was wearing my sacrifice around his neck while he sat in a steakhouse downtown. I felt a coldness wash over me. It was not anger. Not yet. Anger is hot. Anger makes you do stupid things like drive downtown and start a fight you'll lose. This was different. This was like the ice at the bottom of a cooler. It was a realization. She was not just having an affair. She was giving him the pieces of our history. She was handing over the things I'd bled for. I did not say a word to her that night. I went to the restaurant and worked a double shift. I prepped 40 pounds of pasta by hand. I focused on the rhythm. Fold, roll, cut. Fold, roll, cut. By the time I finished at 3 a.m, I had a plan. I knew I needed more than a blurry photo. I needed something that would stand up in court. I needed something that would make sure she did not take my son and my business away from me, because that's what these people do. They do not just leave. They strip mine your life and leave you in a hole. Anyway, I realized I had to be the guy she thought I was. The clueless chef. The guy who just cares about his sauce and his son. I had to let her think she was winning. It's the only way to get a person like that to get sloppy. And believe me, she was getting very sloppy. Portland gets real quiet around 4 in the morning, even on the east side. I was out in the garage, supposedly looking for my old fly fishing gear. I told Rachel I wanted to take Owen out to the Deschutes River for the weekend. She'd just nodded, too busy texting someone to care. I was not looking for fishing rods. I was looking for the truth. I started moving boxes, Christmas decorations, old baby clothes, tubs of kitchen gear I had not used in years, and there, tucked behind a stack of winter tires, I found it. A brand new Toomey suitcase. Expensive. The kind of luggage people buy when they're planning on going somewhere and staying there. I opened it, and it was not empty. Inside were neat stacks of clothes, her favorites, but there was a folder at the bottom. I opened it and felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. There were enrollment forms for a private school in Seattle. They were already filled out for Owen. There were printouts from a real estate website, condos in Queen Anne, 3 blocks from her firm's Seattle office. And then, the kicker. A full breakdown of our assets. She'd been documenting every penny I made at Faro for the last year. She had a list of every piece of equipment, every bottle of wine in the cellar, every cent in our joint savings. She was not just leaving. She was planning to snatch my son, move him to another state, and leave me buried in debt with a hollowed-out restaurant. The clock was ticking. She was set to vanish exactly 3 days after my 41st birthday. I sat on a milk crate in the dark garage and breathed in the smell of oil and old cardboard. I felt a weird kind of calm. The kind of calm you get when the storm finally hits, and you stop wondering when it's going to rain. I went back into the house. I stopped by the hall closet and dug through a box of old electronics. I found exactly what I was looking for. An old Motorola baby monitor. We'd used it when Owen was a newborn. It was one of those high-end ones with a sensitive microphone. I waited until she went to the gym that afternoon. I went into the guest bedroom. It was spotless. She'd already started packing her books and her jewelry into small, inconspicuous boxes. I tucked the baby monitor behind the headboard of the bed, right near the nightstand. I ran the wire behind the dresser and plugged it into the outlet she never used. Then I went to my office. I set up the receiver and plugged it into my computer. I tested the signal. It was crystal clear. I could hear the wind rattling the window pane in the guest room. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I spent the rest of the day acting like the perfect husband. I made her favorite dinner, halibut with a lemon caper butter. I laughed at her stories about work. I even apologized for being so distant lately. She smiled at me. It was a beautiful smile. The kind of smile that could make a man believe anything. "It's okay, Nate," she said, sipping her Chardonnay. "We're all just stressed. After your birthday party on Saturday, I think things will finally start to settle down." "I'm sure they will," I said. "I'm counting on it." And I was. I was counting every second. Thursday night was the worst. I was sitting in my office at the restaurant. It was 11:30 p.m. The kitchen was closed. The cleaning crew was mopping the floors. I had my Sony headphones on, connected to the feed from the house. I heard the door to the guest room open. I heard the rustle of sheets. And then I heard a voice I did not recognize. A man's voice. smooth, arrogant. "He's still at the shop?" Sean asked. "He's always at the shop," Rachel replied. I could hear the clink of glasses. They were drinking my wine. A bottle of 1998 Barolo I'd been saving for a special occasion. "The guy's a drone," Sean said. I could hear him laughing. "A monkey in a white coat. Does he honestly think he's some kind of artist because he makes noodles?" "He's a provider, Sean. That's all he ever was," Rachel said. Her voice sounded different, sharper, cruel. "He's been useful. He paid off my dad's back taxes. He built the equity in this house. But he's reached his ceiling. He's boring. He's predictable. I can't spend another 30 years talking about seasonal vegetables and food costs." "Well, the paperwork is ready," Sean said. I heard a muffled sound, the sound of a kiss. "As soon as the birthday party is over, we head north. By the time he realizes you're gone, the papers will be served. My brother is a shark in the Seattle family courts. He'll make sure the kid stays with us. We'll tell the judge Nate's work hours are unstable and unhealthy for a child." "I feel a little bad about the ring," Rachel whispered. "Do not," Sean said. "It looks better on me anyway. It's a trophy, babe. A trophy for winning the game." I sat there in the dark office. My hand was gripped around a ballpoint pen so hard it snapped in half. Ink leaked all over my palm. I did not feel it. I just listened to them talk for another hour. They talked about how they'd sell my restaurant to a corporate group. They talked about how they'd move Owen into a house where he'd have a real father who wore a suit instead of an apron. I recorded every single second of it. I saved the file to 3 different cloud drives and a thumb drive I kept in my pocket. I knew using a hidden mic was a legal gray area in Oregon, but I did not care about a courtroom yet. I needed leverage. I needed the kind of truth that burns bridges and stays burned. Listen, I've seen some things in my life. I've seen men lose fingers in meat grinders. I've seen businesses go up in smoke in a single night. But nothing compares to hearing the person you love talk about you like you're a piece of trash they're finally ready to throw out. But here's the thing they did not know. A monkey in a white coat knows how to handle heat. If you can't not stand the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. And I was about to turn the temperature up to 1,000 degrees. Anyway, I did not go home that night. I slept on the prep table in the kitchen. At 5 a.m., I got up, showered, and started making calls. I called my lawyer. I called a private investigator I knew. And then I called the catering company I used for big events. "Hey, it's Nate," I said. "For the party on Saturday? I need to make a change to the audio-visual setup. I want something immersive." Saturday was a beautiful day. Blue skies, 75 degrees, perfect for a backyard party. We had about 50 people coming, my friends from the industry, Rachel's colleagues, our neighbors. I'd spent all morning at the grill. I had prime ribeyes, local sausages, and corn on the cob. Rachel was the perfect hostess. She was wearing a white summer dress. She was floating around the yard, laughing, handing out drinks. Sean was there too. He was wearing a light blue linen shirt and white pants. He looked like he just stepped off a yacht. He had the balls to come up to me at the grill and shake my hand. "Happy birthday, Nate," he said. He gave me that winning smile. "This spread is incredible. You really are a master of your craft." "Thanks, Sean," I said. I looked him right in the eye. I could see the chain under his collar. I knew the ring was right there, pressing against his chest. "I appreciate you coming. It means a lot to have family friends here." He patted me on the back and walked away. I watched him go over to Rachel. They stood a little too close. They shared a look that they thought was secret. It was not. Around 7 p.m., the sun was starting to go down. People were finished with their main course. The backyard was full of the sound of chatter and clinking glasses. "Hey, everyone!" Rachel called out. She stood on the back porch, holding a glass of champagne. "Can I have your attention for a second? I want to make a toast to my husband." The crowd went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. I stood by the grill, wiping my hands on my apron. "Nate, 41 years is a big milestone," she said. She looked at me with so much fake love it made my skin crawl. "You've worked so hard for this family. You built Pharaoh from nothing. You're an amazing father to Owen. I just want to say how much we all appreciate you." "To Nate! To Nate!" the crowd shouted. I stepped forward. I took the microphone from the stand I'd set up for the music. "Thanks, Rachel," I said. My voice was calm. I'd practiced this in my head 1,000 times. "That means a lot. Truly. But you know, I'm a chef. I do not like to just talk. I like to show people things. And since it's my birthday, I wanted to share a little behind-the-scenes look at what makes this family work." I looked over at the catering guy I'd hired. He was sitting at the soundboard by the fence. I gave him a small nod. "I've been doing some recording lately," I said into the mic, "for a project. I think you guys will find it interesting, especially you, Sean, since you're such a fan of my craft." I saw the color drain from Rachel's face. She looked at the speakers. Suddenly, the music stopped. There was a second of static, and then a voice filled the backyard. It was loud. It was clear. It was coming from 4 massive Bose speakers I'd hidden in the trees. "He's a drone." Sean's voice boomed across the yard. "A monkey in a white coat. Does he honestly think he's some kind of artist because he makes noodles?" The backyard went dead silent. 50 people froze with their drinks halfway to their mouths. "He's a provider, Sean. That's all he ever was," Rachel's voice followed. It sounded even colder over the professional speakers. "He's been useful, but he's reached his ceiling. He's boring. He's predictable." I looked at Rachel. She was clutching her champagne glass so hard I thought it would shatter. Sean was staring at the ground, his face turning a deep, ugly shade of purple. The recording kept playing. It played the part about the ring. It played the part about moving to Seattle. It played the part about Sean's brother, the shark lawyer, and how they planned to take Owen away from me. I just stood there. I did not yell. I did not scream. I just watched. The recording stopped. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. My neighbors were looking at their shoes. Rachel's boss, a guy named Miller, was staring at her with pure disgust. "Nate?" Rachel whispered. Her voice was trembling. "Nate, that was a joke. We were drunk. You're taking it out of context." "Out of context?" I said. I put the microphone back in the stand. I walked over to the porch. I reached into the cooler and pulled out a large, white cardboard box. "I have a few more things to show everyone," I said. I opened the box. I pulled out the Toomey suitcase I'd found in the garage. I threw it onto the grass in front of the porch. It burst open, and her expensive silk blouses and the Seattle school forms spilled out for everyone to see. This was hidden in the garage, I told the crowd, with Owen's enrollment papers, already signed. She was planning on leaving on Tuesday, without a word. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out a stack of papers. And here are the bank statements, I said. $400 for a dinner at the Heathman Hotel. $300 for a business lunch at a jewelry store. All on our joint account. The account I funded with my 80-hour weeks at the restaurant. I walked right up to Sean. He tried to step back, but he bumped into a table. I reached out and grabbed the gold chain around his neck. I jerked it hard. The clasp snapped, and the chain, along with the ring, fell into my hand. "This belongs to me," I said. I held the ring up so everyone could see the gold and copper glow in the twilight. I bought this with the first $3,000 I ever made. I had it engraved with "Always." I guess I was wrong about that part. I turned back to Rachel. She was crying now, but it was not the fake crying from before. This was real panic. "Nate, please," she sobbed. "We can talk about this. Do not do this here. Not in front of everyone." "Why not?" I asked. "You were happy to talk about me in front of Sean. You were happy to talk about me in your secret little group. Now the whole neighborhood knows who you are, and so does your boss." I looked over at Miller, the partner from her firm. "Mr. Miller," I said, "I'm sure your firm has a very strict policy about senior auditors having intimate relationships with partners who are supervising their work, especially when it involves using company time for, well, you heard the recording." Miller just nodded. He did not say a word. He just turned around and walked out of the yard. 10 other people from the firm followed him. I looked at Sean. He looked small. Without his suit and his power perfume, he was just a pathetic guy who'd been caught stealing another man's life. "Get out," I said. My voice was low. "The suitcase is right there. Take it. Take her. And take the mortgage on this house. I had my lawyer file the papers yesterday. Since you're so successful, you can handle the $6,000 a month in payments. The house is in her name anyway. Her father's name was on the original deed for tax reasons. Remember?" I'd spent the last 48 hours with my lawyer. We'd found a loophole. I'd technically gifted my portion of the equity to her for tax optimization purposes weeks ago. It meant I was off the hook for the massive debt we'd taken out for the renovation. "Wait, what?" Sean stammered. "You heard me," I said. "She's all yours. Her debt, and her father's back taxes. Have fun in Seattle." The yard cleared out fast. People do not like to stick around when a life is being dismantled. Within 20 minutes, it was just me, the catering guy, and the mess. Rachel and Sean were gone. They'd scrambled into his SUV with a Toomey suitcase and as much of her stuff as she could throw into a garbage bag. She'd screamed at me, called me a cold-blooded monster, and told me I'd never see Owen again. She was wrong about that, too. I walked into the house. It was quiet. I went upstairs to Owen's room. He was sitting on his bed wearing his headphones. He'd heard everything, of course. He was not crying. He just looked at me. "Are we going to the restaurant, Dad?" he asked. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "Let's go." I drove us down to Alberta Street. I unlocked the front door of Faro. The air inside smelled like garlic, old wine, and floor wax. To most people, it's just a business. To me, it's the only place where things make sense. I went into the kitchen. I turned on the lights. I put on my white coat. I did not feel like an artist. I did not feel like a monkey. I felt like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. I made Owen a bowl of simple pasta, just butter, Parmesan, and a little black pepper, the way he likes it. I sat across from him at table 4. "Your mom is going to be away for a while, Owen," I said. "She's going to live in Seattle with Sean." "I know," he said. He twirled a noodle around his fork. I do not like Sean. He smells like a department store. I know, buddy. Me neither. Can I stay with you? He asked. Always, I said, and I meant it. My lawyer called me an hour later. The recording I'd made, combined with the evidence of her planning to move Owen out of state without my consent, was enough to get an emergency custody order. The private investigator had also found out that Sean had a history of predatory behavior at his previous firm. Between that and the scandal at their current office, they were both going to be looking for work for a long, long time. I looked down at the ring in my hand, the gold and copper alloy. I walked over to the back of the kitchen, to the industrial trash compactor. I dropped it in. I hit the button. I listened to the sound of the metal being crushed into nothing. Listen, some people think you can fix anything. They think if you just talk enough, or pray enough, or try hard enough, you can save a marriage. But I'm a chef. I know that when the meat is rotten, you do not try to mask the smell with spices. You do not try to cook it low and slow. You throw it in the trash. You scrub the table. And you start over. I looked at Owen. He was finished with his pasta. He looked happy. For the first time in months, the house, the real house, the one we carried inside us, was calm. Anyway, that's the story. I'm 41. I have a son who thinks I'm a hero, and a restaurant that's booked out until Christmas. I still have flour under my fingernails. I still have scars on my hands, but I do not smell that musk perfume anymore. And that's enough for me. The tragic error here was not just misplaced trust. It was the assumption that a shared history creates permanent loyalty. Our protagonist's biggest mistake was failing to realize that when a partner stops respecting your sacrifice, they've already started planning your replacement. Here are 3 takeaways. First, trust your primal instincts. If the atmosphere in your home shifts, even slightly, pay attention. Second, never consolidate your entire identity and all your assets into a single shared vision without maintaining your own strategic perimeter. And third, keep your legal and financial records as sharp as a professional blade. Preparation is the only thing that stands between you and total ruin. How would you have handled that moment on the porch? Write it in the comments below and subscribe for more honest, cold-blooded case studies.